Hello, everybody. It's Gary Stuckey with Real Music. On today's show, I've got guitarist and singer from the band Otis. It's Boone Froggett. Yeah, I love that name. He's here talking about their brand new single called Last Fool in the Line, and great song. It's a great southern rock band. Going to talk about that song and a lot more. Had a great time chatting with him. I think you're going to enjoy it. So here we go. Here he is. Here's Boone Froggett.
This is the first thing that I noticed. Your name, it sounds like you should be a pioneer or something of the new frontier. No, but so how did you get the name Boone Froggett? I guess Froggett is a family name.
Yeah, Froggett's a family name, and Boone's my middle name. My dad was he's real big into hunting and fishing. He's a big outdoors guy, so I'm sure the name came from Daniel Boone.
Sure, surely. Yeah,
Yeah,
I,
but
I'm related. I'm related to Daniel Boone somehow. My great great grandfather was a guy named Jesse Boone from
well,
from Indiana. Well, he's got a town named after him in Indiana called Booneville, Indiana. So I'm
we've been through
related.
there.
Oh yeah, that's my kinfolk. Uh, but the southern flavor of your music. Now, I of course, I mean Kentucky. You're right in the middle of the bluegrass and country and southern rock, and you're surrounded by all that. That had to influence your sound, right? Did you grow up listening to all kinds of music, or what was some of the music that you grew up listening to?
Man, my grandfather was an old time bluegrass fiddler, and my dad played like Bakersfield honky stonk style guitar. So those were a lot of my influences growing up. Bill Monroe and Merle Haggard, and the town where we come from here is the town that the Kentucky Headhunters live in. So those guys have been a big influence on me, and I've grown up and got to know them and just like family with those guys. And also, Newgrass Revival started here as well. So, Sam Bush, Curtis Birch, all those guys were around too. So it's been a lot of different influences kind of coming together. I did an interview with a guy in the UK this morning, and I was explaining to him, like, geographically, there's no better place that we could have came from for culture and music, because we're right in the middle of the nation. We're trapped between Chicago and the Delta and the Deep South. So we have all these great influences kind of coming together here. Bluegrass, blues, rock and roll, folk. We got it all.
You've got it. Oh man, that's cool. That's yeah. I talked to Greg Martin a few years
Yeah.
ago, and in that music, uh, when you're kind of influenced by all these different sounds, it's going to show up in your music. What would you say that is probably the most dominant sound in your music that's recognizable uh, in your songs
Uh,
that people
for for me personally, everything comes from the blues, man. I'm a big blues nut. Of course, I love Elmore James and B.B. King and Lightning Hopkins and all that stuff. But it's interesting to hear when other people hear the music, they hear totally different things in there than I do. But when we first started, we never really set out to be a flavor of the week type band, and it was almost like a new southern rock band was kind of unheard of.
yeah,
People's like I don't know about that, because when we started, it was kind of in the middle of the 2000s, and active rock was big, and that was the direction people was trying to point us in. We're like, no, we don't want to do that. We want to do something different. But now, times have changed as bands like Government Mule, Blackberry Smoke has come up, and even
right.
more recently, Chris Stapleton has turned the whole world on to soulful rock and country music. So, but yeah, for me, it's very a blues based music. But for the most part, people categorize us as a southern rock band, which is fine with me. Puts us in there with the Almonds, Wet Willie, and Marshall Tucker. That's all right.
Yeah, that's right. Uh, Wet Willie from right down here in South Alabama. Um, that's a great sound. And thinking about Leonard Skinner and bands like that, do you think, a lot of these bands that you grew up listening to, the Southern rock bands are kind of dwindling down and maybe they'll be retiring soon? Would and like in your bio was reading about that, about carrying the torch. Would you think that you're carrying the torch for Southern rock into the future? Would you say that that's what, your plans are to keep that Southern rock blues kind of a sound going on into the future?
Oh yeah, that's definitely our goal, man. It's a really interesting form of music, and we wear it really honestly, and we would love to do that. Really the first what people call Southern rock would probably would have been the Allman Brothers, but if you ask them, they were just making progressive rock and roll music, and they happened to be from the South, so they had all those great influences. It's like if you go and you look at the writing credits on the debut Allman Brothers album, you're going to see mostly, there's old blues songs, there's a Spencer Davis cover in there, so that was really influential to us. That first album was kind of the blueprint for this band. But we took those influences and took it somewhere else. Obviously, the Allman Brothers have done their thing, and nobody can touch what they did. But we try to make music that has the same spirit.
Sure. And y'all do a great job.
Thank you.
I've been I've been listening to your discography, going back and listening to some of the music. Of course, you got a brand new song just came out called Last Bull in the Lion. Um, is that from experience? Would you say? I mean, I kind of can relate to that song. Sometimes I feel like that guy. What's the story behind that song exactly?
I think we've all been that guy, or at least know somebody that has been that guy. We as a touring musician, you get put in contact with some really interesting people. We playing these clubs, and going out to the smoking section of the venue. Sometimes you hear stories that you're just like, man, I don't know if this is true or not, but this is a great story. And we kind of wanted to interject some of that into our music. And it's funny, I let Fred Young, the drummer from the Headhunters, hear it, and he said, "Man," he said that's shady character music. I like that, and that kind of stuck with me, so because it is kind of a shady character story. But sometimes people just have bad luck, but that doesn't make them necessarily a bad person. They're still enjoyable to be around, even though they have this other side to them.
Sure. And do you find that in writing songs and doing songs that the songs that are more real, people kind of they probably draw in that that those feelings more to a song like that. It's probably more recognizable to them. They probably like the song more if they can relate to it, right? Especially the
Oh,
blues, right? Everybody has the blues every now and then, right?
absolutely, man. And I've found that people have really resonated with this song. As I mean, just this week we got Joe Bonamassa added us to two playlists. We're up for Classic Rock Magazine Tracks of the Week this week. So people seem to really like and relate to this song. We released a single back in March. And it's a cover of Betty Harris. It's called "There's a Break in the Road," and it got good reception too. But it seems like people relate to the story in this song a lot more than anything we've released.
Right. Um, and I've read it's been like 7 years since you released music, since the last time you released music. So how come there was a gap in there for so long?
There's a bit of a gap. 2019, 2020, we were going pretty much wide open. We were, touring Europe, playing all over the United States. Then the pandemic hit, and the original drummer in the band decided he wanted to stay home, do the family thing. And our guitar player at the time decided he wanted to go over and play bass for an active rock band. And while that was going on, I had thyroid cancer. So I had to get my thyroid removed and take some radiation. And it took about a year to get that out of the way. But once I got the green light health wise, we went right back into it. Found two new guys to come into the band, and we've been touring and recording, solid since then. So in a lot of ways, I think it's done us a lot of good to have a little hiatus, and you bring with new members comes new energy, and it's kind of a different experience. It's very much the same band, but it's a lot. It seems to be a lot more bigger and energetic, and people really seem to take to this lineup of the band. So I think that was probably the way it was supposed to happen.
Sure. Um, and when you form a band, you probably have these certain goals, and probably through the years, you probably still have a goal maybe you haven't accomplished yet. Is there a big goal that you're setting out for that you haven't hit yet? That's the number one thing you haven't done yet?
Oh, absolutely, man. There's so many things that we wanted to do that we haven't got to do yet. But there's a lot of things that we've, accomplished already that takes other folks a long time to do. I mean, we've been over to Europe twice, and that's very rewarding to grow up in a small town, and you make this music that's influenced by life and in the South, and then you take it over there, and it's just received so well because they don't have anybody over there that can make that music authentically. It's just like as much as we all love the Beatles here, we can learn every Beatles chord in the book, but we'll never be able to play it the way they do because we didn't have the same upbringing and the same culture. So to go over there and kind of do that for them is really an amazing experience.
Sure. Um, and these days, with different influences, like you just said, it helps to be authentic, when you're playing and people respond to that, to being authentic. I mean, it's a big deal. What do you think musically that you bring to the table that hasn't been done before?
Man, I think we have a really interesting mix of blues versus the rock and roll in our band. Usually most bands are one way or they're the other, but it's like 50%. It's like, the blues is 50% and then the rock influences are 50%. So that lets us open, be out and play with some very interesting bands, some we're doing shows with the Headhunters, we're doing shows with Jackal. We're playing with this act called Tommy's Rock Trip in Kansas City, and Tommy was the last touring drummer for Black Sabbath, and he played with Ozzy and Alice Cooper and Rob Zombie. So we're able to go out and do the rock shows, but we can still go and do the King Biscuit Blues Festival or any of those roots music type things. So we really enjoy that about our music is that we're not necessarily stuck, to playing one certain type of show or one certain type of audience, and that keeps it fun for us.
Sure. Um, I know in 2014, you did an album called Tough Times, a tribute to John Brim. And
Yeah.
and I was reading about him, and of course, a legendary blues guy. Maybe people didn't know about, I was thinking about the song Ice Cream Man, which y'all did a cover of that. But
Yeah.
Van Halen, of course, did that song. And I think he took the money, the royalties, and he like built this a club and made a club, a nightclub from that. I thought that was really cool, though. Isn't that important to talk about those influences from those guys like John and the original, talking about the South? I mean, if it wasn't for those guys, those blues guys, those we wouldn't have any kind of music at all. So I think it's important, right, to cut. I mean, y'all covering that's a big deal, and I think there you got some exposure to some of the guys, and they're getting recognized for what they did. And a lot of people don't pay attention to that, but uh, bravo on that. But that had to be a great experience to cover his music and kind of find out more about him, right?
It was, man. It was a really cool thing, and it was kind of a bold move to do for a first album was to do a tribute to an old blues guy like that. But Greg Martin from the Headhunters, this was actually his idea. He called me over to eat barbecue with him one day and gave me this burnt CD. He said, "Man, this is this guy, old blues guy from. He grew up here in Kentucky. His name's John Brim, and in his teens he moved to Chicago and recorded on Chess Records. At the same time as Little Walter and Howlin' Wolf and all the greats. He's like, you guys should maybe think about covering some of these songs." And initially, the idea was just to do an EP. But once we got in there with Greg producing, it just everything happened so naturally that we were like, okay, let's go ahead and do a full length of this. And it was really important to us that we stated the blues influence and background that is in Kentucky, because of course we're known for bluegrass and folk and country music, but we're not that well known for blues music. But we have a fair amount of blues heritage in Kentucky. Louisville, Kentucky is where the first ever recording of a slide guitar was made. Sylvester Weaver recorded a slide solo with a pocket knife, and that was
Wow.
one of the first slide solos ever recorded. So it was important to us, like I said, that we paid tribute to that great blues influence. And John Brim had some great songs, and it was really fun to make new arrangements for those and pay tribute to him in that way. And we even got uh, uh, several emails from John Brim Jr., his son, thanking us for, thanks for, for playing my dad's music. That meant a lot to me. And that's kind of like mission accomplished there, just to make it full circle. And Billy Gibbons is a big fan of that album as well. So
Awesome.
that's good as it gets in the blues world. If you get Billy's attention, you're doing all right.
This is true. That's got to make you smile. That's really awesome.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I was reading about your new single, the last bull in line, was produced by Kevin McKintry and
Yeah.
mastered by Ty Tabor. Now, how did you get those guys involved?
Yeah, Kevin's been an old friend of the band. Of course, I met him through the Headhunters, but Kevin, incredibly talented man. He's played with George Thorogood, Brian Setzer, Delbert McClinton, you name it, man. He's played on some really big albums and done a lot of touring. So being able to come in, his studio and work with him was really a treat, because he has a lot of the same outlook on music and recording as we did as a band. It was funny. I was like, we were talking, setting up things. I was like, Kevin, what new stuff have you been listening to? He's like, man, he said, I don't really listen to new music. I listen to Howlin' Wolf. And I was like, all right, well, we found our guy here. And we only had three microphones in total on the drum kit, which is kind of unheard of for this day and time, because everybody just wants to mic everything to death. But Kevin is so talented and letting the room really come into the recording, which is what we wanted. When we were setting up, he's like, what do we want to sound like? What are we going for today? And I was just like, man, Faces, Humble Pie, Little Richard, the Allman Brothers, and he's like, all right, man. He's like, I've got this. So we had a great time recording with Kevin, and that's probably where we'll go back to lay some more stuff down. And then it come time to master it, and I was talking to Greg from the Headhunters. I was like, man, we need to find somebody to master these singles. And he's like, what about Ty Tabor from King's X? I was like, yeah, right. I said that would be cool. He's like, no. He's like, I'll hook you up. So he introduced us, and Ty mastered two songs for us, and he's been great to work with. So we've got some really interesting combinations of people, working around us. So it's really cool.
Right. And what's the response been like so far about this single? I know that everybody uh, has been liking it. What's some of the responses that you've heard that kind of made you smile overall?
It's been really good so far. It's about as good a response as we've had to anything. There was a magazine out of Spain that said it's the perfect combination of ZZ Top and AC/DC. And if you're trying to be a rock and roll band, those are two acts that's really cool to be compared to because of their, influence and longevity. And Classic Rock Magazine had nicer things to say about it. It said something to the effect of it's easy to see why Billy Gibbons is a fan of this band type thing. And so it's been really great response across the board this time. The streaming's doing well, the radio's doing well, so yeah, I think we're on to something with this one.
Great. That's awesome. Um, and what do you think? A lot of people they like talking about these bands like AC/DC or the Allman Brothers or ZZ Top. You can go back and listen to the old albums. You can stream them or whatever. What makes the newer bands with the similar sounds that are bringing carrying that torch? What is the draw to those people? What do you say to people that don't want to listen to newer bands? What do you say to those, and how do you make them give you a chance as far as your new music, your original music, as opposed to going back and listen to old stuff? Because a lot of people are like you said earlier, like I don't like new music. I want to listen to the old album. How do you respond to people that might not want to give new music a chance?
Well, I can see both sides of it. I'll listen to a lot of old music, and I'll listen to a lot of new music. Just I like knowing what other people are doing, and there's still a lot of classic bands out there, and they're still making great music. Like Foghat's got a new album out that's great. Fabulous Thunderbird's got a new album out that's great. But when you turn on the radio, all you're going to hear is Slow Ride and Tough Enough because
Yeah.
that's what's on the radio, and there's not really a true home for new classic rock inspired music on the radio. But I mean, the thing is that all our heroes are evaporating. I mean, we just lost John Mayall, this week, and what a
Yes.
what a what a figure, what a great role he played in blues rock and rock and roll music. So if you're stuck on all the classic stuff, you're either going to have to find a new band like us to go see that has the same influences, or you're going to go out and see a tribute band. And that's kind of where it's at, all the classic guys are, there's a few of them still out there doing it. Of course, the Stones and ZZ Top, they brought in Elwood Francis on bass, and like I said, Foghat's still out there. A lot of these great bands are still out there, but there's as time goes by, you got to try to find kind of something new to hang on to, and something new to experience. And people want to relive that concert experience they had as a teenager or growing up. And there's a young band's a great way to do that because we don't play to any tracks. We go out there. It's real amps, real drums, real vocals. It's a real band you're seeing up there. So we can give you that experience you had in the 70s.
Right. Yeah, that's talking about the tracks. That's a sad thing these days when people are using those tracks and fake music and stuff like that and AI. Hopefully
Yeah.
that won't happen. I mean, how crazy would it be to, use AI for music and push real artists to the side? And I know, for you as a guitar player, it's a big deal when you're learning and you're coming up with these ideas, and the person listening has to go, they have to love the idea that you're a creator, and it takes time to make songs as opposed to mashing a button and going, yep, there you go. I mean, isn't
Yeah.
isn't that a big deal? I mean, the time you put into music, the creative experience, isn't that the whole idea and the fun of music is just, recording it, coming up with it in your head, going from your head to paper or whatever, or on your phone or whatever, and then going from there to recording, and then you're on a stage and there's fans listening to that song and you're playing it. That's got to be a cool thing to look back on and go and just know that the creative process, that's a big deal, right?
Oh yeah, man. And any band you see that everybody's like, "Hey, this is a new band," I guarantee you they got 10 years behind them of figuring out who they want to be as songwriters and players and figuring out what they want to do. I know, and that's our case. I mean, we've been at this a while, but it just takes time to get the right guys in the band and figure out who you want to be, and then to put that down and you go out and tour and start finding your people that are interested in hearing what you got to say. I mean, it's a really cool process, but just to just to put a couple of influences into a database and hit a button and something come out on the other side. I really don't think it's no competition for somebody who knows their craft and knows what's going on. It's just like this AI thing's kind of crazy. I know it has a lot of uses and practical uses in the real world, but they're trying to use Steve Marriott's voice right now to make new music, and his bandmates and some of his family is fighting against it, and it's just like, man, this is getting crazy. We have all kinds of great Steve Marriott music, Humble Pie and solo stuff. It's kind of like we
Right.
don't I don't want a computer generated version of Humble Pie.
No, I mean it's cartoony and weird and fantasy and just stick to the old stuff and go with that. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Um, so tell me now, this single is out and doing really good, and people are excited about that. Now, what about a whole album? Are you going to release an album coming up soon, or how's that going?
That's our main goals is to release a full length release. That's album form is the way that everybody in the band listens to music. It's hard to play the singles game. It's what everybody's doing right now, but you only get to show so much of what your band can do with each single, as opposed to where album is a more complete picture of who you are as a band. So that's definitely our goal. We're just taking the data that we're getting from these singles and talking to labels and saying, hey, this is what we're capable of doing as an independent. If you kick a few dollars behind this, it could probably go a little farther. So that's kind of where we're at right now. There'll probably be a couple more singles before we get an album out, but hey, that's all right. That's what everybody seems to be doing. People really don't realize how costly it is to produce music and release music properly,
Yeah,
to have a couple publicists helping you out, and you get your airplay and folks helping you out with the streaming stuff. I mean, there's a lot more to it than just, going and recording something and releasing it. You gotta do your homework.
that's right. You sure do. And I've always been a fan talking about the albums. The old days when you have a vinyl album or an actual CD or cassette or whatever you wanted to call. But to have it in your hands, an actual physical copy as opposed to streaming, there's a certain feeling about that. There's a certain, and I grew up listening to Casey Kasem on the radio, and you heard and you got the album. You might have had one or two singles, but then you got the album, and it was this whole, like you said, a whole idea, different flavors in there, but there was one, I don't know, feel that you got to listen to the whole album experience. And of course, you had the album cover of the band and the lyrics and who wrote the songs and who produced it and who plays on this and who did that, where it was recorded. This whole idea, you don't get that on a stream. So there's a different feeling though with an album, and I think singles are cool, but I think an album is like, it's like eating, some appetizers as opposed to this big steak and potatoes and, you know, some sides and some a big old piece of cake, chocolate cake. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, that you're missing out on, but I don't know. Do you like that, the old school ways of doing things as far as albums
Oh
and
yeah, man, that's where our head is at for sure. There's nothing like scattering your albums out on the floor, and you got, Zeppelin's physical graffiti over here, and then you got those great Roger Dean covers that Yes was doing for
oh yeah,
for all their for all their artwork and all the blues stuff. And I've just learned so much going through those liner notes of who produced this and, like you said, where this was recorded. And it's how I found out about a lot of the original blues guys. Is I'd go down there and see who wrote it. And I was like, I've never heard of this guy before, and I'd go check that out. But I mean, there is advantages to digital. I'm able like now I'm able to download a lot of box sets like on Apple Music that I probably wouldn't be able to afford otherwise. Like,
Yeah.
I just got the Humble Pie one downloaded. It's got all the A&M stuff, and
Cool.
I just did that with BB King as well. A collection of his early stuff that's really hard to find. So I mean, it's a double-edged sword. There's advantages to it, but at the end of the day, I'd always rather sit down with a record player and look at the liner notes and have a more immersive experience. It's just it's really hard to get people's attention these days. Just to
Yeah.
even listen to 30 seconds of a song is a challenge, and that's so different as opposed to the way things were, say, in the late 60s, early 70s, where people were willing to put in the time to, consume a whole album like that and not do anything else. It's just the world just isn't wired that way now for some reason. I'm sure there's people like me and you who still listen to albums that way. But as a general population, I think everybody's wanting to consume something quick.
That's what it is. I think I think the internet ruined us, and it's all put out there. Everything. There is no surprise. There's no mystery. It's like it's all here. You
Yeah.
go. You know, consume this right now. There's no. You don't have to wait for an album. You don't have to wait and see what this sounds like. It's like if somebody throws out every single in a few months, like because like used to, like you said, we're talking about, you'd have a single, you'd wait a few months and then they'd release another one. They'd see how that went, and it was like, whoa. Then they released the album after they saw how that excitement was building up. But if you throw it
Yeah.
all out there at one time, and it's like, and you've already seen the guys, the stories behind this and that. There's really no mystery as far as the songs and and I know it's a different world, but I think there's a certain kind of people were more excited about waiting for a new album to come out, and then it's just a different world. I don't know. I'm old school kind of a guy, but that's just how it is, I think.
Yeah.
Um, so tell me this now. You were talking about playing from different bands on the road. Now, what in the future? What are some bands that you want to play with? What would be the ideal band that you would open up for somewhere, and where would be the place that you'd do it?
Man, we would love to play with folks like the Black Crows and Government Mule, especially Government Mule, because they have a lot of the same approach that we have to a live show, to where it's all real stuff. There's no tracks, but also each show is different every night. You never know what Warren's going to come out there and throw at you, and the cool covers that they do. And it's like you were talking about, it kind of brings some of that mystique and mystery element back into the music, which is something that has been missing from rock and roll. I think we need, and we love to play theaters, man. There's nothing like a good sounding theater that was built in the early 1900s.
Yeah,
The performing arts centers are fun, but there's a certain thing about them. It's just not as interesting as an old theater that's got the stained glass and the old wood, and is really really built to perform in.
sure. Um, and so what about the coming up? You got some shows coming up like in near future, or what you got going on there?
Oh yeah, man, we're busy. We're heading out tomorrow. We're opening for the Kentucky Headhunters in Dalton, Georgia, at the
Oh,
Georgia Mountain Moonshine Cruise In, which will be a lot of fun. Classic car show, and then we open for the Headhunters, and they get up there and do their thing. And then Saturday night we're in Evansville, Indiana, at Mojo's Boneyard. We got some cool stuff coming up in August. We're going to be at Knuckleheads in Kansas City on August 15th. That's going to be a lot of fun. And looking forward to September, we're going to be at the Georgia Allman Brothers Band Association Festival down in Macon. It's going to be a lot of fun. It'll be us, Eddie 9 Volt, Sonny Landreth. There's going to be some great acts down there. So we're looking forward to that. And yeah, they're starting. We're adding dates every week. So just get up there on theotisband.com and see what we got going on.
That's so cool. Well, I appreciate you talking to me today.
No problem.
So cool. Like I said, Boone Froggett. It doesn't sound like you have a boring life. It sounds like you're going out on the road and making a path through the frontier. I mean, it sounds like that's
Yeah,
exactly what you're doing.
there
But
you go.
I think you're gonna have fun coming up soon. I'm looking. Maybe I'll get to see you out there somewhere. Sounds like you'll be all over the place. Maybe I can run into you somewhere and hear y'all play. You got
Yeah.
great music, man. I appreciate you talking to me today.
Oh, no problem. It's been a pleasure, man. Anytime you want to come to a show, just reach out and we'll make it happen.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
All right,
Have a good
thanks.
day. All
You
right.
too. Bye.
Bye.
There you go, everybody. Boone Froggett from the band Otis appearing near you. Check out their website for more information. Got to check those guys out. Brand new song, Last Fool on the Line. Find it and listen to it wherever you find great music. And I think you're going to enjoy that song. Until next time, everybody, always remember to keep the music real.